He eats 3 chickens every day for breakfast, lunch, supper, and dessert. That's 12 in total per diem. Nate Bunce is a duck and goose farmer. He's approximately the size of a pot-bellied dwarf, and his chin would be underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool on the planet. His food is homemade donuts with smashed up goose livers injected into them. Frank Bean is a turkey and apple farmer. He invented his own species of each. He lives on a liquid diet of strong alcoholic cider, which he makes from his apples.
Hey, howdy, hey, awesome people of the internet. Wolfman47 Dash here, and welcome to a Let's Talk about the Wes Anderson verse. Wes Anderson, as you know, is a filmmaker known for his visual style and unique patterns, and yeah, I can't carry on with that. Yeah, as you may have noticed, Wes Anderson is known for his deadpan performances. Well, as in deadpan performances from the actors in his films. He's also got a good vision. He's got an interesting visual style and interesting themes that his films follow. And when many people see his films, they are very different to what is considered the norm in Hollywood and other films. And I like that because when filmmakers stand out like that and do things that go against mainstream stuff, it is a great thing to see. And that's exactly what he does. And today, with the recent release of his latest film, which I'll get to later on, I decided I'd talk about not all his filmography, but most of his films, so just focusing on his feature films, specifically because a lot of the short films he's done have connections to these feature films, and I've not seen all of the other things that he's directed or worked on. So yeah, it's just focused on specifically on his feature films, and that's it. But I may do other things at a later date. So yeah. So we've got a long list to get through, so let's get started. So first up we have Bottle Rocket. So this is obviously his directorial debut, and not just his directorial debut, but also the acting debut of the Wilson brothers, Owen and Luke Wilson. Of course, Owen, you'll know him as the guy that goes, "Wow, ka-chow." Luke, I'm not sure if you know him. You might do, I'm not sure. He has been in a lot of things. But anyway, so in the film, the brothers play 2 fictional brothers who are performing a series of heists, and all sorts of shenanigans happen. Now, because this is Wes Anderson's first feature film, it obviously does not have his unique visual style that we would see later down the line. But what it does have is the general idea of his way of filmmaking, by giving us performances that are not exactly emotional and so forth, although there is a little bit of emotion in this film. And yeah, I'll be honest, when I was making this video, I actually had a lot of his earlier films sort of played in the background while I got on with other things. But this film I did see a lot of, and I thought for the first film for these 3 guys, I thought it was okay. It's definitely not the first Wes Anderson film I've seen. So obviously it was a complete surprise to me when I found out that it's not anything like his other films. But I did still find some enjoyment in it, and I believe it just like with the Ballad of Wallace Island, it's a remake of a short film that's very much in the same vein as that, but obviously feature length and everything, which therefore meaning that it has other things added. So I don't really know what else to say about it other than it was interesting, and if you want to see Wes Anderson's first film and also his only film that he did with Columbia, then this is the film. And also seeing Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson before they become established actors, this is their first film as well. So yeah. So I'm going to give Bottle Rocket a respectful 8 out of 10, because I thought it was good, but if you're after something more traditional in the Wes Anderson style, this is definitely not the film. So yeah, just to make that clear. Kind of more into his sort of style now is Rushmore. So this film is the acting debut of Jason Schwartzman, otherwise known as one of the famous nephews of Francis Ford Coppola. He plays a teenager who is good friends with this tycoon guy played by Bill Murray, who from this film onwards becomes a frequent collaborator with Wes Anderson, basically appearing in a majority of his films from this film onwards. And they have a shared affection for an elementary school teacher. And from what I remember for seeing this film, I didn't. Again, this was one that I had in the background, but I didn't see too much of it as I was doing other things. But from what I remember, Jason Schwartzman's character is trying to make a play. He manages to succeed in making the play, but where he's showing the play is not the best place to do it. So he decides to do the play somewhere else, and he wants to recruit this bully kind of character into it. And yeah, you can tell I've not really remembered all that or a lot about this film other than Bill Murray's in it, and that's pretty much it. But it does kind of sort of feel more like a traditional Wes Anderson film, albeit only slightly more than Bottle Rocket. But yeah, it is what it is. So out of respect for Wes Anderson, and that I did give it a try, I'm going to give this one a slightly lower 7 out of 10. So that's that one. So this next one is again slightly more like Wes Anderson, and it is The Royal Tenenbaums. So coming of age film with success in youth and failure in adulthood, and it's basically the film that inspired the TV show Arrested Development. Yeah, again, I had it on the background, so I don't remember too much from it, but I did remember it being quite funny. And it's also important to note that of all the people that Wes Anderson worked with, studio-wise, his most regular ones will have been Universal and Disney. I say Universal and Disney because Universal is part of the same company that own Focus Features, and I say Disney because obviously because Wes Anderson films were distributed by Touchstone Pictures, which was Disney's studio for mature films, because they don't want their name associated with mature films for a long time. And then obviously films that he did with Fox are now part of the Disney umbrella as well. So yeah, anyway. Royal Tenenbaums, yeah, I don't really remember it that much, so I'm just gonna. So my rating is just based on the fact that I don't remember much about it. 6 out of 10. So that's that. Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. So this is about an eccentric oceanographer. I'm just reading from my notes here. Wanting revenge on a jaguar shark who ate his partner, and it's dedicated to the real life person, Jacques Cousteau. I think that's how his name's pronounced. Yeah, this is a very much a Wes Anderson film. It's got the makings of a Wes Anderson film. It's got the visual style. It's got the comedy. It's got the deadpan jokes. It's just everything that makes a Wes Anderson film a Wes Anderson film. And again, I did play this on in the background, but I remember it pretty well, and I thought it was pretty good for it was. Is it my favorite Wes Anderson film? No, because some of his later work is, in my opinion, much better than his early work, but that's just me. But I am going to be fair to this film, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for just being more like Wes Anderson. So next is the Darjeeling Limited. So this is about 3 brothers who reunite for a funeral and then take a spiritual journey on a luxury train. So it's kind of got a sort of 4 weddings and a funeral vibe, but it's obviously not that at all. It's obviously trying to be its own thing. And it's a Wes Anderson film as you can get, with its unique style, substance and everything, and definitely has its quirks and so forth. And I think, as I understand, this was also the first time Wes Anderson incorporated some stop motion animation, which would lead into his next film, which I'll talk about in a moment. But Darjeeling Limited, again, it's a film I don't remember too much about, but I remember it being Wes Anderson as you can get. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10. And now we come to all the films that I basically did spend a lot of time focusing on everything, because these are the films that really got me into Wes Anderson, and I remember them all really well. So let's get started with those. So first up is Fantastic Mr. Fox. Now, obviously, as we know, Roald Dahl's stories have been adapted to screen many occasion. Wes Anderson's not the first person to adapt his stories, but he is the first person, to my knowledge, that has made a stop motion version of one of Roald Dahl's stories. And to be honest, with a story like with Fantastic Mr. Fox with anthropomorphic animals, obviously animation is probably the best way to do it. So George Clooney stars in this. Michael Gambon stars in this as well. And if you are familiar with the book, it's pretty much almost exactly like the book, where these forest critters are trying to go about life, but then these poacher hunter people are trying to get rid of them, and they go into a war, fighting and everything, and it's very much in the style of Wes Anderson, with the deadpan and everything, and just how and I just love the stop motion of it, because it's very much a stop motion film, which can be quite similar to other films like it, where it's not claymation like what Aardman make, but it's more like stop motion films that the likes of Lakia do, and also Tim Burton as well. But obviously with Wes Anderson's own unique style, and it would be the first of two films that he would make that's completely stop motion. And for a film that's based on Roald Dahl, it's not my first Roald Dahl film. I have seen Roald Dahl films before this, but I will say this is definitely the best one, because Matilda was a Danny DeVito film that captured the spirit of the book, but was otherwise not really a great adaptation, in my honest opinion. And likewise with the musical, although it was more faithful to the book, it still didn't feel like much of the book. The two BFG adaptations I thought were okay. I didn't particularly like, although I do feel the David Jason one didn't rush itself, unlike the Steven Spielberg film did. And the Witches films, I've seen them both. One's better than the other. You know which one it is. And as for the three Wonka films, I like the first one. Thought the second one was and obviously I did enjoy Wonka as well. But anyway, back to Wes Anderson. This is definitely still the best film, because it feels like a Roald Dahl story, but also at the same time it feels like a Wes Anderson film. So it's basically finding the balance between the two, and it's done really well. So although I don't think it's a perfect film, I do think it's the best film I've seen that's based on a Roald Dahl story. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Moving on to Moonrise Kingdom. So this one is probably the very first Wes Anderson film I saw, and I didn't even know that about Wes Anderson at this point. So a bit of a story behind this. When I first started being subscribed to Netflix, this was during a period of time where Netflix had access to a wide array of feature films that weren't their own works, and one of those films was Moonrise Kingdom. I watched this film wondering, because I was curious about it, and I quickly came to sort of realise that this is very much a very different film to what I would have seen previously, and it's also the first time I've seen one of his films which has an ensemble cast, which I did forget to mention earlier on. He's well known for his ensembles of casts, and my tablet has decided it's going to turn itself off. Right. So yeah. Anyway, so Moonrise Kingdom, I believe, from what I remember, it's about some scouts that go to a camp thing. Everything happens, and at some point, this one scout is taking things to extremes, and the staff are trying everything they can to try and help him out. Eventually leading into a sort of thing that happens in a storm, and you got all sorts of big names in there. So Jason Schwartzman, whatever, he's back. Bruce Willis is in this. Tilda Swinton's in this. All sorts of big names are in this one, and it was a joy to watch from what I remember of it. So I'm also going to give this one a 9 out of 10 as well. So around about the time the Grand Budapest Hotel came out, I also watched a completely different film, albeit but very much about a hotel, which was the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Obviously, both these films are different, even though they are based on in hotels. And although one is about retired people that go to that go to a part of India, Africa, whatever, to be in a hotel and just enjoy life there. The other one is pretty much if Wes Anderson was given a hotel and decided to make a film in it. So yeah, so you got Ray Fiennes playing a big role. You got all these other different characters in there, and it's basically just goes about all the different shenanigans that go on in the hotel. I think there is, if I remember correctly, there is a sort of big major plot point in the film, but I don't actually remember it that well. It's one of his more complicated and complex films, but still in very much in the style that we come to know and love of Wes Anderson. So I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10 on the basis that I remember it, but I don't remember it that well, and but I do remember it being quite complicated. But still, very much a Wes Anderson as you can get. So next is his other stop motion animated feature, Isle of Dogs. So this one is a bit of a interesting one. It's kind of made out to be a foreign film because a lot of the language that people speak in is a language that that could come across as maybe Korean, but I'm not entirely 100% on that. But it's basically about a virus that affects the world, and apparently all the dogs have this virus. So the dogs are relocated to this island where they have to stay, and there's people working behind the scenes trying to make a cure for it, and then this boy lands on the island. So the dogs make it their mission to bring the boy home, and in the meantime, a sort of cure for the virus is being made, but government bodies are not exactly that keen on it, and yeah, it's it does follow the same kind of stop motion style that my Fantastic Mr. Fox had, but it's obviously different. You can obviously different this time because the bad guy is very obviously a bad guy. The good guys are very obviously the good guys. The dogs look as generic as you as not too generic, but do look as doggy as you can get. It's got another ensemble cast with Bryan Cranston sort of being the dog leader, whatever his name is, I forget. And it's not entirely in the language that the film's trying to depict. There is a lot of English language spoken in there as well, and subtitles too. So yeah, and I think it's one of his more interesting films. And the first time I heard about this was through one of my friends who is very into his films, and he's actually a big fan of Wes Anderson as well, even though he would usually only see films that are made on a bigger budget. But nevertheless, it's a film he recommended to me, and I did watch this while having it mac and cheese for dinner for my dinner one evening, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it is definitely another win for Wes Anderson in the world of stop motion. So I'm going to give this film a 9 out of 10. Which now brings me to a film that I saw with Clank Zoka. Now, Clank Zoka, as some of you will know if you're subscribed to him, he is a film buff. He's often known to go out to see art house films over big budget blockbuster films, although he'll make some exceptions. And for Wes Anderson, it's a bit unique because we always go to the same specific cinema when a Wes Anderson film comes out, because usually this particular cinema that we go to see a Wes Anderson film will always have a Wes Anderson display, and not a display as in like you see the poster on that set, actually an actual proper display with all the things coming from the film and everything, because they really are Wes Anderson fans, that particular cinema. So we went to see this film called French Dispatch, which compared to Wes Anderson's other films, this one's a different one in the sense that it's an anthology film. So there is obviously a reoccurring theme about it, but there's otherwise an anthology film that features a short beginning and then some quite large short stories, and then a sort of very small ending, but always bringing it back to the office of this fictional newspaper outlet who are busy making their final issue, and all the stories from that final issue are depicted in the film. It's once again got an ensemble cast. Owen Wilson's back, Bill Murray is back, Timothy Chalamet is in this, and I didn't actually know he was that he was actually starring in this, because I didn't actually know who he was. Jeffrey Wright's in this as well, and all sorts of other big names as well, as is to be expected from his films by this point. Um, in terms of how I feel about this film, I think it's a good, well constructed film. It's very different to what he's done previously in that there's usually a beginning, middle, and end, and it's usually just one big story. Whereas this time it's like several short stories rolled into one film, and it's definitely not his only film that he's done that. But I think it's okay for what it was. It didn't make much sense to me when I first saw it, but I remember it well, and I remember its style and substance and everything, and I think it was a really good visual spectacle for what it was. In the sense of how Wes Anderson does his films. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Bringing us on to Asteroid City, which was the second film I saw in the same cinema with Clark Soka. We both of us are in agreement that this film is probably one of Wes Anderson's weaker films, in the sense that it's still as Wes Anderson as you can get, but does have a lot of things that are basically too familiar and so forth. And yeah, but I do kind of get what it's trying to do. So basically, all these families come together to this space camp thing, and all these different children are trying to make these space projects, and all of these children are quite famous child actors from all sorts of different things, including the It films, Stranger Things, and so forth. And then you got the parents doing stuff as well. Jason Schwartzman's back again, and Scarlett Johansson's in this as well. And I'll be honest, this is actually, and even though this was rated PG here in the UK, there is actually a nude scene featuring Scarlett Johansson, but it's like a very brief nude scene. It's like a blink and you miss it moment, and yes, okay, I might have a thing for nude and sex scenes and everything, but for the brief glimpse I saw of Scarlett Johansson naked, she's a beautiful lady, and even today, and she's quite a looker. But anyway, enough about that. It's yeah, I don't really know what to make of this film. If you're very familiar with Wes Anderson at this point, you're gonna enjoy it just fine. But if you're like after something more from Wes Anderson, this film's definitely not it. But I did like how it was presented. Obviously, the new additions to his frequent collaborators with the cast is good. So in this film, Tom Hanks and, as I say, Scarlett Johansson made their debuts for the Wes Anderson in this one. So yeah, it's not his best film, but I thought it was okay for what it was. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Bring us on to the only film he's ever done on Netflix, which is The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and Three More, which, for those of you who don't know, is basically a Roald Dahl book where itself it has several short stories, and it's adapted to either one film or several short films, depending on how your preference is when you go on to Netflix. So in the film, you got this cast that includes Benedict Cumberbatch, Richard Ayoade, Dev Patel, and others that I forget the names of, but they are quite famous, well-known actors throughout. And it's basically just telling the different stories from this Roald Dahl book, but it's told in a very interesting way. So basically, each of the characters is basically delivering their lines, but then they sort of give narration as well. So they do their lines to the person, and then they face the camera and start narrating the story. And that is a very unique and interesting twist to narration in films, because it's not often you see people actually look directly in the camera and to give you narration, and that's what happens here. And because I'm not the greatest at trying to process information, it did kind of get to me a bit that they are trying to narrate things, but I get why they were doing it, because it was basically Wes Anderson trying to tell the story from all these these separate different stories. And even though they may come across as some quite serious stories, there is at least a few instances where it comes across as quite funny. So I remember in one of the stories, one of the guys says there was a gunshot, and then he looks at the guy that has the gun and making out that the guy needs to do the gunshot noise, and the guy does the gunshot noise, and it's like a pretty pathetic gunshot, which kind of made it unintentionally funny. Although I think it was meant to be funny anyway. But yeah, I think this was a good sort of experiment, and another win for Wes Anderson in terms of making a Roald Dahl film. It's not quite up there in the sort of quality that Fantastic Mr. Fox was, but it's still good. It's just the narration did kind of get to me a bit. So unfortunately, although I otherwise like it, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Finally, bringing us on to his latest film, the Finnegan Scheme, which is an interesting film about a business tycoon played by Thingy Del Toro. I think it's Benicio Del Toro, but I'll leave it in the edit or not. Who plays this sort of business guy with some religious beliefs who together with his illegitimate daughter, this nun character, go off to try and settle some things settle some projects that he's been working on, because he's discovered that things are about to transpire that he may need to do stuff to sort out. So they go all across the world to all these different projects, try to sell things with these business associates, and it's usually a simple case of they do pleasantries, so forth. He gives them a hand grenade, like you do, and they try to sort things out, and then things are sorted, and then rinse and repeat. It's one of those films, but it's interesting the different times that they go to all these different places trying to sort things out, and then it ultimately reaches this climax where Benedict Cumberbatch is playing this final business associate who decides he wants to kill the tycoon, and I'll say no more than that because spoilers. So yeah, so Finnegan Scheme, is it my favourite Wes Anderson film? No, but I think it is an improvement over Asteroid City, albeit only like a little improvement. It's, yeah. Honestly, I think out of all the films, I think Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs are my two top favourites. But in terms of live action, I think Moonrise Kingdom would definitely be one. And Grand Budapest Hotel, despite the fact that I don't remember much from it because of how complicated it was. But yeah. But Finnegan Scheme, still a good film, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. And that is it for my Wes Anderson Let's Talk video. And yeah, he's a very unique filmmaker, one of the best filmmakers I've seen the work of in a long time. And I think lots of you do need to go check out his films because they are really, really good. They may not have big explosions, big robots, or superheroes or whatever, but they are still very good and definitely worth giving a watch if you can. If you like ensemble casts, unique visual styles, deadpan comedy, unique ways of narrating stuff, and the rest of it. So yeah, give him a shot if you can. But yeah, if you've seen all these films or know about Wes Anderson, do leave your thoughts in the comments because I'd love to know what you think about him and his films. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And like, share, comment, and subscribe if you can, please. Those of you that are new to my channel or are considering subscribing, I do vlogs like this where I'm giving you reviews of things, and also I do other things as well, like hauls, rants on life, top tens, exploring different multiverses, characters, things in different genres, what if scenarios, and all sorts of other things. So that's what I do. In addition to that, I also do gameplay videos. So gameplay videos where it's straight up gameplay, nothing else, and let's play videos where you get to hear me speak and may have my camera on or off. And depending on the nature of the games, usually for big games, I'll do a series of videos, some which are usually just straight up gameplay videos, but can be let's play videos as well. And yeah, you get the idea with that. And I also do shorts as well, just occasional shorts really. So yeah, see you in the next one. Peace to you all. And remember, as I say, give these filmmakers a shot, because they may not be anything like the big blockbusters that you may be too used to, but the important thing is you might remember these films Wes Anderson makes more than the big blockbusters, so do definitely check them out. And if I can think of any more to any of his films, it's, yeah, sometimes no emotion is the best way to go about things, best way to explain stuff and the rest of it. So yeah, all right, toodles.
Oh,